I guess it had to happen someday. This day had to arrive at some point, but what's ironic is that it in no way had to arrive now, at this point, from a football standpoint. Welcome into the voice of college football. Appreciate everyone joining us. And if you live in a certain part of the country, you are probably huddled inside, hopefully warm and safe, because it is mighty brutal outside where I'm located and where many of you are located as well. If not, hopefully you're enjoying some nice weather, but you can bring it inside for a couple minutes or take it outside on your phone, by the pool, on the beach, on a walk, wherever you may be. And we'll talk some college football. We will talk a college football legend and amplified a zillion times an NFL legend, of course, in Tom Brady. So this was not planned, of course. It was just notified to me a few minutes ago. I will thank and recognize, of course, Lewis Papp. Lewis, are you here? Lewis said, let me know that Tom Brady had retired. I saw it pretty much simultaneously in Lewis's tweet to me, and also that had just seen it pop up elsewhere. I've just released a video on our American Conference ranking. American Conference ranking, Tom Brady retirement, American Conference ranking. So I just released that video. I've been working on that video for the past hour or so and was really not locked in on any news coming down. And then all of a sudden I see the GOAT's retired. The GOAT? We will have that discussion. Is he the GOAT? There's a college football category in which he is certainly not the GOAT. There's a pro football category in which he certainly is the easy argument to make as the GOAT. There are other arguments to be made, though. I will give you my perspective. And then if you want to combine the two as the greatest of all time in just quarterback play in American football. I will get to your comments and questions. Hopefully we'll have a good turnout here to talk about Tom Brady, and certainly we'll talk Tom Brady most prominently, but we can talk college football. And with the NFL championship games coming up on Sunday as well, the AFC and the NFC, Rams, Niners, and Chiefs, Bengals. So the Bengals reached their first AFC championship game, and since they played the Bills in 1989, the game before the historic Joe Montana drive down the field to beat the Bengals in that Super Bowl. Of course, the Chiefs have been in, 4 consecutive AFC championship games, the Rams and the Niners. The Rams, I was trying to figure this out a couple minutes ago as I was setting up, that the Rams last played an NFC championship game in Los Angeles, I believe in 1978 against the Cowboys, because they played in the championship game the next year against the Buccaneers, but that was in Tampa. They played in the championship game in 85 in Chicago. They played in the NFC championship game against San Francisco in 89, but that had to have been in San Francisco because the Niners had the best team in the league. And then they moved about 5 or 6 years later and, of course, played those championship games in St. Louis, and played a couple of years ago in New Orleans in the NFC championship game. So the first NFC championship game in Los Angeles since the late 70s, 78. And San Francisco last reached the NFC championship game just a couple of years ago. Of course, they went to the Super Bowl against Kansas City. All right, back to Tom Brady and your thoughts about Tom Brady. I will dive into the live chat here. Jeremiah's here. It says, I lost $200 because he did not win another Super Bowl. Okay. Jeremiah says the greatest of all time, there is no debate. Well, I believe there's a debate. There is definitely a debate. I understand your point. I think people get wrapped up too much in accomplishments, team accomplishments. Based on accomplishments, he's the greatest of all time. There's no question. There's no debate. Based on playing ability at the position, yeah, there's a debate. There's a debate. there is a debate. Desnuts 1001. I was hoping he would have retired 5 years ago. Now it's like, how much longer can he go now that he is the unheralded GOAT? He would be heralded. He would not be the unheralded. He would be unheralded if nobody knew or talked about it. West Virginia guy says Mahomes is the next GOAT. Though you're going to have to explain this to me. So there are people out there. We've got this term GOAT out there. I threw this out about a year ago on something that somebody was the GOAT. Elvis is the GOAT. And I think it was my sister was unfamiliar with the term. And she was like, GOAT. What does that mean? GOAT. That's kind of a put down, isn't it? He's the GOAT. I said, no, greatest of all time. So now it seems as though there are people on social media who recognize a number of people as GOATs in the same field. I don't quite get that. Can't there only be one greatest of all time? If they're the greatest of all time, they're the greatest of all time. And to West Virginia guy's point, if Pat Mahomes becomes the greatest of all time, then Tom Brady would no longer be the greatest of all time. If you're talking about the best playing today, there can be only one. But then if they retire, then there can be a next guy who is the best today. But the greatest of all time is the greatest of all time. And until somebody is better, and of course, there is a debate about any greatest of all time. So I will argue with anyone that there is no slam dunk GOAT for anything. Michael Jordan's not necessarily the GOAT. Tom Brady's not necessarily the GOAT. Muhammad Ali's not necessarily the GOAT. Fill in the blank. Babe Ruth is not necessarily the GOAT. Tom Brady is the most accomplished quarterback of all time. He's not necessarily the greatest. He didn't play necessarily the position the best. Maybe he did. I'm not saying he didn't. I'm just saying it cannot be proven that he played the position better than other quarterbacks. He accomplished more. His teams accomplished more. I think this past Super Bowl run was a great example of that, where Tom Brady played extremely well last season, and Tampa Bay doesn't win the Super Bowl without him. They might have won the Super Bowl with Pat Mahomes. They might have won the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. But Tom Brady just happened to be the quarterback, and he played very well. But if you watch the Super Bowl, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year did not win the Super Bowl game, because of Tom Brady. They won the Super Bowl on their defense. Their defense won the Super Bowl. They gave up 9 points to Pat Mahomes. The defense should have been the MVP. It's another ridiculous, pathetic kind of box that we find ourselves in sports. The quarterback wins the MVP when the quarterback does not deserve to win the MVP. It's not even debated. That's not debatable that the MVP in last year's Super Bowl was not Tom Brady. It was not Tom Brady. It was the defense. You give the Super Bowl MVP to the defense. They gave up 9 points in the Super Bowl. And then during the championship game, Tom Brady threw 3 interceptions. Aaron Rodgers outplayed him. Tom Brady was gifted the championship game by bad coaching on the other side and by his defense. Carson Wentz to Tampa. We're turning into the voice of the NFL. Again, are we debating? So you guys are definitely in the category of accomplishments mean GOAT. And that's fine. That's fine. I'm not in that boat. When I talk about Tom Brady, I don't think he's the greatest of all time. I think he's the most accomplished quarterback of all time. I don't think it's ridiculous to argue him as the GOAT. I think he's definitely in that top 3 to 5. But I've watched the NFL since 1977, and I believe that currently Pat Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers play the position better than he does, and it's a team sport. So I don't know why quarterbacks, I know that they handle the football, but the left tackle that wins the most Super Bowls isn't the GOAT. The running back who wins the most Super Bowls is not the GOAT. So I think it's a faulty argument point. Des, you're good. You're good. Jeremiah, if you don't accomplish as much but have better ability, doesn't that make him more of GOAT than others who have more talent than he does? That's not what I'm saying. I'm not talking about talent. Talent goes into it. No, I'm talking about playing the position well. If Tom Brady would have played his entire career with the worst team in the NFL and played the position just as well, he would not have won any Super Bowls, but he would have been just as good. He personally would have been just as good, and he would have won nothing because it's a team sport. And if he would have been playing in the worst team in football, if he would have been playing for the Cleveland Browns or the Detroit Lions for the last 22 years, he would not have won one Super Bowl. He would have elevated their play considerably, and it would have been remarkable that the Detroit Lions, who may have been 4-12 that year, would have gone 9-7 with Tom Brady, or fill in the blank. We saw with Peyton Manning one year when he stepped off the Colts and he was like 14-2, and then they went 2-14 without him. Then he came back and they were back to 12-4, 13-3. So we can see that. But Tom Brady's not winning Super Bowls with the worst team in the league. Nobody is. But that doesn't make him any different of a player. That's my point. So I'm not big into the accomplishments. Of course, I understand I'm in the minority here. But again, by definition, Charles Haley's the greatest defensive player of all time. He's played in the most Super Bowls, won the most Super Bowls. Charles Haley is the greatest defensive player of all time. That's what you're telling me. Ohio State still likes Joe Montana as the greatest of all time. The real MVP says Tom Brady is the greatest NFL player of all time. Brady broke most relevant records, has the most Super Bowl wins and appearances. So this is the other part of that is a bit of a faulty discussion. Was he not the GOAT the day before he won the Super Bowl? So he, in one day, he went from not being the GOAT to the GOAT the next day when he won that Super Bowl that was more Super Bowls than anyone. He plays at a position where he can win the most Super Bowls. It's also difficult in football to name the best player of all time. The positions are just so different. It is so much easier and more valid to name the best player of all time in baseball or basketball. And I know nothing about the other sports. Those are the sports that I follow and can speak knowledgeably about. So I don't know about hockey. It looks like everybody does the same stuff. Soccer, who cares? So anyway, baseball and basketball, despite the position differences, everybody shoots, everybody scores, everybody rebounds, everybody passes, everybody plays defense in the same manner. In baseball, everybody comes to bat, everybody fields, everybody throws, everybody runs the bases. Everybody does the same things. They have the same skill set. It's slightly different to be a second baseman than a catcher. In football, though, to compare linebackers and quarterbacks, to compare wide receivers and defensive backs and running backs and tackles and guards, it's just I think that there are players at their positions who were noticeably greater at their position than the field than Tom Brady. Ben lets us know that Eli's the GOAT slayer. Yeah, 2 Super Bowl wins. And certainly Tom Brady could have won more Super Bowls. He certainly could have won less Super Bowls. He was extremely fortunate. The first Super Bowl was a gift. That should not have been a Super Bowl win, and we'll never know what would have happened after that had he not won the first Super Bowl, which was a gift. It was a rule book gift. I don't think that's not debatable. If you have any kind of respect for the game of football, the tuck rule is I have no idea what the logic was in determining the tuck rule. So the officials made the right call, but the Raiders had the ball in the game and the game was over, and we would have had a Raiders-Steelers championship game. Ohio State says Tom Brady, along with 8 other quarterbacks, were beneficiaries of sweeping rules changes that severely handicapped the defense. Well, sure. Not just 8 quarterbacks. Every quarterback, yes. There's no way you can statistically go back for a number of reasons. But there were bigger and more impactful rules changes in 1978 than in any other time in the history of the NFL. 1978, the 16-game schedule, the holding along the offensive line was changed, and the defensive pass interference and holding rules were completely changed in 1978. That was the biggest impact, I think, in the history of the NFL in terms of style of play on the field. And then, progressively, there were rules changes after that benefited not just Brady, everybody. So you can't go back statistically and compare Brady and Johnny Unitas and Roger Staubach and Terry Bradshaw, and Joe Namath should not be in that discussion, so let's leave him out, but he came to mind. Sonny Jurgensen, Sammy Baugh, you just can't. These guys were trying to throw to receivers who were being tackled downfield. So you just in no way, and the offensive lineman cannot hold. If you think holding's called way too much in the NFL today, go back 40 years, 45 years, and these offensive linemen were severely handicapped by the rules. They couldn't grab onto these guys at all. You basically could do that. Basically just pushed and got in a guy's way and just tried to maul him. And I'm not trying to in any way diminish Tom Brady's accomplishments. They're amazing. They are remarkable, astonishing. Yes. And for anyone who calls him the GOAT, I am not arguing with you. I'm just saying that I can't call him the GOAT. I don't think he played the position the best in the history of the league. I think he was right there. Des Nuts 1001. It takes Tom Brady an hour to run 100 meters. So, no, he's not the best NFL player, just the best NFL quarterback. Yeah. And you can also put that factor into it, that from an athletic standpoint, you can't compare. And then you could say Des Nuts 1000. You could also say wide receivers who run that fast are not as strong as offensive linemen, and strength is a part of football too. So are the offensive linemen the best players? Because they're the strongest and the biggest and the toughest. Is Orlando Pace or Anthony Munoz the greatest player of all time? Or is it Randy Moss or Jerry Rice at wide receiver? Or is it Jim Brown, Walter Payton? Barry Sanders. The real MVP, yes, we understand that. Quarterbacks can play longer than other players. So the real MVP, by your measurement, the player with the most Super Bowl wins is the greatest player of all time. So before Tom Brady was Charles Haley. You were going around telling people that Charles Haley was the greatest player of all time. And right now, I believe, if I'm correct, you would say that Yogi Berra is the greatest baseball player of all time. I believe he has the most World Series appearances and rings. Yogi Berra is the greatest baseball player of all time. And Bill Russell, right, is the greatest NBA player of all time. The real MVP's criteria is rings. So Bill Russell is the greatest basketball player of all time. Yogi Berra is the greatest baseball player of all time. And Tom Brady is the greatest pro football player of all time. Ohio State is adamant that Joe Montana is number one. So before I tear down Tom Brady, I don't want to tear him down. It's his day, and I should never tear him down because he's a great all-time quarterback. Let's just put to the side for a second and just assume is not even the right term because it's credited, it's earned beyond belief. All the greatness, the awards, the yards, the TDs, we recognize all of it. Let's recognize the greatness. The greatness is, again, the accomplishments are unsurpassed in any possible way. The first Super Bowl was a gift. Again, I don't think that that's really debatable. The first Super Bowl was a gift. They are showing, or were showing a few minutes ago. So this is where he benefited in life. This is a few places. The first Super Bowl was a gift. The Super Bowl against the Seahawks, that was a gift. That was a gift beyond belief. Marshawn Lynch runs the ball. Seahawks win. Patriots don't win the Super Bowl. What was the other one I was going to bring up? Oh, well, the Falcons game. The Falcons Super Bowl. The Falcons, all they had to do is manage the play clock, and they would have won the game. So he had 3 Super Bowl wins that are highly questionable. Now, he could have beaten the Giants twice. What did he lose? 3? Giants twice, Eagles. Those could have been wins as well. But I don't think he really lucked. I don't think he was the beneficiary of the kind of luck in those games or the victim of the luck on the other side as he was the beneficiary of luck for those 3 Super Bowl wins. He played well in those games from what I remember. Yeah, he played well in just about all the Super Bowls except for here's another one, the Rams-Patriots game, the 13-3 game. I think Julian Edelman won the MVP of that game. Why does the defense not win the MVP of that game? 13-3? That was an ugly Super Bowl. Does Nuts 1001 says, if Lloyd Carr starts Brady all year in 1999, maybe Michigan wins a natty. Maybe. They blew the game the next week against Illinois 48-45 after the Michigan State quarterback in the legendary clock disaster. Yeah, they lost to, did they lose to Illinois? And I remember they lost to Illinois and they lost to Michigan State. They went 9-2 in the regular season. They beat Ohio State by a touchdown, and then they won the Orange Bowl. So in 1999, yeah, I'm going to agree with Ohio State here that I just don't see that Michigan team beating Florida State, but we'll never know. Jeremiah Powell. So Aaron Rodgers is more talented than Brady. So is Mahomes. But you're telling me that Brady has not kept his team in games that got them to the Super Bowl and won Super Bowl because there are other players on his teams. Huh? Can't say that I really understand your. I'm not talking about the most talented. Talent goes into it. Talent. Without talent, none of them are great or even playing in the NFL. Of course, they have to. There has to be a lot of talent. No, I'm talking about playing the position. In my estimation, and it's close, Aaron Rodgers plays the quarterback position better than Tom Brady. Pat Mahomes plays the quarterback position better than Tom Brady. Not by a lot. And if somebody would argue with me and say, no, Brady plays the position better than Rodgers and Mahomes, I would say, okay, that's not a ridiculous statement. It's not like saying Andy Dalton plays the position better than Tom Brady or that he plays it better than Rodgers or Mahomes. You know, these guys are all in the same class. They're all incredibly amazing. I just see Mahomes and Rodgers making throws that Brady can't make. And they don't make mistakes. It's not like you can go through the annals of the NFL and point out a lot of uber talented quarterbacks who also were a detriment, who also made a lot of mistakes. Those guys aren't them. These guys are super efficient too. Jeff George was a marvel to watch throw the football, but he made stupid mistakes and he had no leadership ability and he was gutless and all that. So he's not an all-time great. No, we're talking about guys that play the position as well as anybody in history. I'm just saying that there's a team. There's a team involved. Yes. Is Nick Foles better than Dan Marino? Marino never won a Super Bowl. So I think we would all agree that Dan Marino is one of the 10 greatest quarterbacks of all time, which when I throw out 10 just a few years ago, that would have been more like 3, but I don't know. It gets stretched out quite a bit now. Brady, Manning, Rodgers, Mahomes, Staubach, Marino, Favre, Montana, Elway, Marino, Unitas, whoever else. Aikman, it's more in the 10 to 15 range, Young, etc. Dalton from T-Town. Yes, perfect point there. Yes, Dan Marino and Nick Foles cannot be compared to each other. If you were going to hold to your point, if your argument is that Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time because he won the most Super Bowls, then you have to apply that same criteria all the way to it. Just doesn't apply on the first rung, and then the rest of it, I'll place them wherever I want. If you're holding to that criteria, then that criteria, you've got to be consistent with it all the way through. So Nick Foles is better than Dan Marino. For people who are saying that Tom Brady is the greatest of all time because he made the most Super Bowls and won the most Super Bowls, then you have to hold to Nick Foles being better than Dan Marino. Trent Dilfer is better than Dan Marino. Joe Theismann is better than Dan Marino. Earl Morrall is better than Dan Marino. Brad Johnson is better than Dan Marino. McD, good to see you. Yeah, Tom Brady definitely played with some. Of course, he played with really good players, but they didn't load up with great players, and he was able to take decent receiving cores and win Super Bowls. He also, and Aaron Rodgers, why they have not supplied him with they have not drafted a wide receiver for him. They've not in the first 2 rounds since he's been there. He's been there for 15 years, 17 years. The longevity of Brady also matters when it comes to the GOAT conversation. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Kealani's going the baseball route. Ohio State, once again, I understand your point about the rules changes, but the credit that you're giving Joe Montana also then has to be applied because Joe Montana played with much, much, much easier passing rules than his predecessors. Johnny Unitas, Roger Staubach, Bart Starr, Otto Graham. After 1978, those were the greatest and most impactful rules changes in 1978. Oh boy, now we're really getting into a battle of eras here. Willie is going to this degree. Our guy Willie, he, I guess meaning Brady, could have never lasted half of his career if he had played in the 60s or 70s. I would have loved to see him play the 70s Raiders, Steelers, Chiefs. Jim Brown is the greatest NFL player. Well, to Willie's point, it kind of seems on one hand ridiculous because the players today are so much stronger and faster and all that. But to Willie's point, Willie makes a good point because of this. Those players were allowed to do so much more. The hitting was so much more ferocious in the 70s and 80s. So much more ferocious. Watch a game from the 70s or 80s. Are the guys as strong or fast and all those things? No. The hits, the late hits on quarterbacks, what they were allowed to do to quarterbacks, hit them in the head, throw them around. Oh my goodness. The late hit, what would be considered today late hits on quarterbacks. Who knows how much longer Roger Staubach was at the top of his game. Arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. Roger Staubach was at the top of his game in 1979. He had led the league in passing the previous 2 years. He had taken his team to 2 consecutive Super Bowls. But he was forced into retirement at the age of 37 because of concussions. Would he have suffered those concussions in a different era in today's game? Probably not. Because the hitting on the quarterback was so much more ferocious. That's a great point by Willie. It's a great point by Willie. It's an exceptional point by Willie. Eli's defense definitely won those games. Well, they did. The defense was huge in those games, especially the first one. Especially the first one. But let's understand that Eli Manning is the only player in the history of the NFL, the only quarterback to lead his team down the field in the final minutes on the final drive of a Super Bowl and win it twice with touchdowns. Twice with touchdowns. Now, Brady took his team down the field a few times and won it with field goals, not with touchdowns. That's tough to do. Eli did it twice. He also took his team on a 4-game playoff run on the road twice. So Eli Manning had a fairly marginal career through a lot of interceptions outside of those 2 magical playoff runs, postseason runs, had his issues in the postseason. But because of those 8 games in those 2 seasons that he played in the postseason on the road, I got to give it up for him. Got to give it up to him. That's Nuts 1001. Yes, the Tuck rule. It's unfortunate that it really mars that postseason if you really look into it. And the Patriots, their fans, Tom Brady, should not be apologizing for anything. Has nothing to do with you. Has nothing to do with you. But You lucked into a Super Bowl win. You took advantage. You then won the overtime. You then beat the Steelers on the road. All due credit to it's like some of the conversations we have about the SEC and Alabama. The SEC and Alabama given more opportunities than the other conferences. They've gained a level of respect and favoritism that affords them more opportunities than the other conferences, but they take advantage. And the Patriots of 2001 took advantage of a bad rule, a joke. Who in their right mind determined that if you're holding a football and you cock back to pass with the intent of passing, and then you decide not to and are moving the football back to its previous position to hold it longer, not to throw it, but you've decided this motion tells us what's going through your mind. I was going to throw the ball. Now I've decided not to. And then it gets knocked out of your hand. How is that a pass? It is the stupidest thing imaginable in sports, not in life. Not in life. Yes, the rules are the rules, but still they got screwed. They got screwed. Who is the GOAT of the GOATs? I don't understand that question. There cannot be multiple GOATs. If the GOAT is what the name defines, then there's only one. Here's another Tom Brady. And again, I don't want this to be a Tom Brady bash session in any such way. Again, I want to state this guy is the most accomplished quarterback in the history of pro football. That can't be debated in terms of passing numbers, championships, championship appearances, postseason appearances, wins, all that. The greatest accomplishments of any player, certainly quarterback, ever. Okay. What else came to mind is another lucky moment for Tom Brady. You guys have to remember this one. This was only a couple of years ago. 2018 AFC Championship game. 4th down. Chiefs winning late in the game, regardless of the down. Tom Brady back to pass. Throws it to the right, off of Gronk's hands, high pass, bad pass, intercepted. Game over. Chiefs win, right? No. D Ford jumped offside over here. He jumped offside. It should be called by the officials. It was called by the officials. It gave Brady and the Patriots another chance. It took them off the hook. It took him off the hook. Did that offside affect the play? No. Tom Brady, as soon as he got the snap, he turned right and threw the ball. It was out of his hands. D Ford was way over here on the left side and jumped early. But it's got to be called. It should be called by the officials. The officials cannot process. They have to call penalties. They can't be like, that was a penalty, but that doesn't affect the play was all the way down. Not going to call it because it didn't affect what was going to happen, so it shouldn't be called. They can't do that. They just have to call the penalty. So D Ford jumps off sides. Tom Brady throws the interception that loses the AFC Championship game. And for those of you who just started watching our channel here, first of all, welcome. Secondly, thank you. Thirdly, I hope you enjoy it. This is what we do. We dive into these things. We just don't take everything verbatim to say, Tom Brady won 10 Super Bowls, played in 10 Super Bowls, won 7. He's the greatest. End of story. No, let's dissect the play. Tom Brady made a crucial mistake in a huge game in a huge moment and threw an interception that lost the AFC Championship game. He was given a gift. To his credit, they won the game. They went on and took advantage of that mistake by Dee Ford and the call by the officials. The officials could have missed it or let it go. And they won the championship game in Kansas City. Oh, that one too. That was maybe the drive before or earlier in that drive that Ohio State is bringing up, in which, yeah, there was a terrible, terrible call, roughing the passer call. Oh my word. That was one of the, this is where I do fault the officials. They do need to be cognizant of time and place and importance. You know what? If the quarterback releases the ball and he's standing there for 10 seconds and a defender just takes him and throws him on the ground, yes, call roughing the passer. That's unreasonable, uncalled for, needs to be called. Yes. There's some kind of egregious out of bounds hit. Yes. But understand time and place, official. Mr. Official, understand. Okay, it's the first quarter, and you want to maintain and keep control of the game and set precedent for later in the game to let people know, hey, I'm not going to put up with that. Yes. But when it's the AFC Championship game and it's the last drive of the game, and Tom Brady, I don't remember the defender for, I think it was Chris Jones for Kansas City, like bumped his shoulder, bumped him. Like he could bump me today, right now, that hard, and I may barely feel it. And I'm pretty weak and fragile at this point. And we're calling, that was an automatic first down. Ohio State, you're right. That was a bad call. Brian is somehow bringing up Bobby Douglas, the old Bears quarterback, who may be the best running quarterback of all time. He certainly had the most yards before Michael Vick or Randall Cunningham, one of those two guys, or maybe both of them. Willie is saying that anyone who thinks that Ohtani had the greatest season of any baseball player, you know nothing about baseball. Well, I did not watch the baseball season, but based on what I gather, I would in no way state that. He had a versatile season. What's unique about it is that, of course, he was a tremendous pitcher and hitter, and we haven't seen that since. We haven't seen anybody capably do it since Rick Ankiel, and we haven't seen anybody do it at that level since the Babe. Dalton. It's nice to get some agreement. The Super Bowl argument is a little dumb. I agree with you, Mark. There have been great players who've never won a Super Bowl. I used Dan Marino as an example. Warren Moon, Dan Fouts, Fran Tarkenton. The real MVP, it depends how much you contribute to the success. Brady had by far the most success and greatly contributed to that success. I agree with that. That doesn't make him the greatest player of all time. Again, those other players that I cited, Bill Russell, the greatest basketball player of all time by the real MVP's measurements. Bill Russell, well, he's an all-time great center, one of the 3 to 5 greatest centers of all time. So he greatly contributed to that success that won 13 NBA championships. So he won the most championships. He contributed greatly. He was the most important player on the floor. So he's the greatest player of all time. By your definition to real MVP, Yogi Berra is a Hall of Fame catcher that until somewhat recently, historically, had the most home runs all time by a catcher, was a great MVP player. He won the most World Series. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on Yogi Berra winning the most World Series. I'm quite positive that he did. Played in the most, won the most, that he's the greatest baseball player of all time. Okay, so the problem with Russell being the GOAT is that there wasn't nearly as many teams in the NBA. Okay, so you're going to prorate greatness based on how many teams were in the league. So let's see how many teams were in the NBA in 1970. I'm guessing there were like 16, 18. I don't know. My internet will cooperate. What's going on here? I was just curious as well. Anyway, okay. Let's see. In 1970, there were 17 teams in the NBA. When Jordan played, when he started, there was like 23. Actually, Jordan's era is as close to Bill Russell's as it is to LeBron's, if not closer. So you're putting LeBron and Jordan together against Bill Russell. I don't know if that's fair. Jordan's era is as close as there we go, Lewis. Thank you so much. Yogi Berra won 10 World Series, which, yes, I was 90 some percent sure that he had won the most. Jeff Webster is chiming in with Joe Montana as well. He's agreeing with Ohio State, who believes that Joe Montana was the better player than Tom Brady. Wisconsin sports fan is telling us Brady might not be retired. We may be doing this prematurely. Therefore, we'll save it and we will air it in 5. I wanted to see. So I'm very neutral on this. I'm not a Tom Brady fan. I'm not a hater. It just doesn't move me one way or the other. It just absolutely does not move me. I'm not going to watch the NFL less or more or anything next year than I would this year. I don't watch the NFL because Tom Brady's playing. I don't watch a game because he's playing. I just watch. So he does not move the needle at all for me, one way or the other. Again, lover, hater, either one. But what I was curious to see was at his age, which is remarkable, at his age, the way he's taking care of himself, how long he was going to be able to play. That's why I opened the show, the stream, by saying, we knew this day was going to come. We knew this day had to come. But ironically, it didn't have to come now. This is not Peyton Manning injuring his neck, where he really couldn't play anymore. It was not safe for him to play anymore. So T Money TSG is saying, TCG is saying that multiple reports say that he has not made a final decision yet, and that may be the case. I went with it because it was like all over the place. It's on, the NFL Network interrupted its programming to play a bunch of Tom Brady Super Bowls. Now that doesn't prove anything, nor does it mean that if they get burned, that it really matters. This is the fun thing about sports. It doesn't matter. It's not like real life events where it really truly matters. Like it matters for good or bad, and no political conversation, please, but it matters who's stepping in or stepping down at various positions within the government and otherwise. That matters. I wish it didn't, but it does. But it was reported by Adam Schefter. It was reported by ESPN. They've got it scrolling in the bottom of the screen. Ryan Nichols likes Elway as the greatest of all time. John, you make a great point about there are a lot of components that go into being a great quarterback, way beyond talent. Absolutely. It starts with talent. You have to have the prerequisite of talent, but it goes well beyond that. To Willie's point, though, if you weren't here, John, the toughness, I would in no way ever question Tom Brady's toughness. I'm not out there taking shots against 250 to 300 pound linemen and linebackers and blitzing safeties or any of that. No. But the amount of abuse that quarterbacks in previous generations took is just not even close to what they take today because of the rules changes. Watch a game from 1975. Start watching a game from 1975, and hopefully it'll be a good example of what I'm saying. Each game's different, but the abuse that the quarterbacks took after the whistle back then. Wisconsin sports fan is telling us that Tom Brady has informed the GM that he has not made a decision. That's funny. Look at this. We got Christ Savior 888. Christ Savior 888. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate the super chat contribution. Great show, Mark. I must be way behind in this chat. I'm catching up. Mark Rippon won a Super Bowl. Jeff Hosteller won a Super Bowl. Yep. And Rippon won the MVP and deserved it. Louis Papp is saying, just think if Brady had better receivers while at New England, he probably could have had over 100,000 yards passing. I understand what you're saying, Louis, but you can only pass for so many yards. Follow me? Like, guys aren't passing for 600 yards a game. I really don't know that his passing yards would have been that greatly affected. He didn't do much against the Rams in this Super Bowl, 13-3. Okay. Randy Moss, Joe Montana. Justin is joking about Joe Montana. I guess he doesn't believe that he's the greatest of all time. The real MVP says, compare Joe Montana to Tom Brady, and it's not even close. It's Brady all the way. I'm not sure about that. Again, the real MVP, you can't go by statistics. You need to a certain extent. Of course, quarterbacks are judged statistically. You should be one of the best quarterbacks statistically in the league to have any argument. You can't take the 15th best quarterback statistically and try to argue that they're the best. But you can't compare because of changes, as was mentioned in the rules to the game. You can't. Keelani makes his case for Lawrence Taylor. He doesn't make his case, but he serves up the name. And in terms of changing the way the game is played, I've seen some really good segments, documentaries, short documentaries outlining how LT changed the game. And as we see in the movie Blindside, why the left tackle is paid more than anybody else. But yeah, Lawrence Taylor, he could be argued as the greatest player of all time. I just think football is so difficult. Truitt with Bradshaw. Bradshaw was great, but he was not an efficient quarterback until late in his career. He was really on top of his game his final 2 to 3 starting seasons with the Steelers, starting in 1978 with those rules changes. I was talking about 1978. Terry Bradshaw, if you look at his numbers, and I watched it, I don't know, Truitt, how old you are to have watched the games. Bradshaw was so much better right near the end of his career. And those quarterbacks that were coming of age then and at the end of their careers, like Staubach and Bradshaw are the two best examples. They were better athletically earlier, but they didn't get the benefit of those rules changes until 1978, right near the end of their careers, and their stats took off. So that goes to show you statistically, if you take a Bradshaw or Staubach, had they played 10 years later, their statistics would be so much better. Oh, my word. People are getting way too upset. Justin, calm down. You're saying Brady couldn't take a hit. Did I say that? No, I didn't say that. You're a moron if you're going to misconstrue my words, because I actually said he could take a hit. If you listen to me, and people should take better responsibility of not defaming people and making asinine statements and actually listen to the other individual before they take offense and then respond. You didn't listen to what I had to say then. And you don't also understand the definition of the word liar. It has nothing to do with being a liar. You're saying Brady could not take a hit, Mark, because if so, I'll call you a straight liar to your face right now. I've seen it. Oh, Lord. Yes. The man played quarterback in the NFL for 22 years. Yes, he took a ton of hits. He did not take the level of abuse. If you know anything about rules changes in the NFL, he did not. And this is not a knock on him. This is Aaron Rodgers, Pat Mahomes, Peyton Manning, whoever you want to fill in the blank. Baker Mayfield, everybody that plays the game today, the quarterbacks do not take the level of abuse because the rules do not allow it. That's a good thing. It's mostly a good thing. It's difficult to play defense and rush the passer because they basically make you stop in an instant. So to compare the level of abuse is not comparable. Willie had made that point earlier, and I was just outlining it. I was just confirming it. That yes, what was allowed in the 1960s and 70s into the 80s was, oh my word. Oh my word. So Justin, please grow up a little bit. John, guys like Lyle Alzado, yes, would last about a half season in today's NFL because they'd be thrown out the league. Yeah. And that's not a good thing to have guys hitting people after the whistle and all that. So much of what has happened with the rules changes and the officials implementing those rules on the field has been good. Now it's gone overboard. And most notably with me is the roughing the passer. I just think what we ask a defensive pass rusher to do is impossible. It's physically impossible to go full throttle, to run like a bat out of hell after a quarterback. And then as soon as they release the ball, to stop instantly, to be able to, trying to think of the term, to basically freeze yourself, suspend your motion instantly. That can't be done. So what you're basically putting in the back of the player's mind is that they can't go 100%. They have to be watching, just, is he about to throw it? And they have to pull up. And that's not fair to the defense. That's not fair to the integrity of the game, to allow the offense to operate fully, freely, and have defenders be hesitant in their actions. A statement from Don Yee, Brady's agent. I understand the advanced speculation about Tom's future without getting into the accuracy or inaccuracy of what's being reported. Tom will be the only person to express his plans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's being reported on the NFL Network, Tom Brady planning on retiring following 22 NFL seasons. Future president. The only hesitancy I would have there is based on some of the things that he's stated years ago and then pulled back or stepped back on. I don't know that I don't know. I think he's too much of a politician. I would want somebody that's a little more outspoken and brave, that's not worried about hurting people's feelings or taking on feedback or taking on the onslaught of criticism. You got to have a tough person. You should have a tough person be the president. I mean, mentally tough. I'm not talking about somebody that can take some shots verbally. Ben, a lot of people don't know this, but in 2011, Eli set current record for passing yards and completions in a single postseason. That wasn't the defense. Yeah, he was phenomenal. Phenomenal. Hopefully you made that statement at the point that I was talking about Eli Manning and the two incredible postseasons that he posted. Christ Savior 888, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. Appreciate that so much. 7770, thank you so much for that. Biblical, godly meaning in that. Mark, Aikman or Young? Tough call. I go Steve Young. Anyway, there was some kind of Tom Brady Twitter account that apparently sent out a goodbye and then has been retracted. Maybe he's having second thoughts. He woke up and thought, I'm going to retire. Or maybe he miscommunicated with, can't think of his wife's name, whatever her name is, his wife's name. And there's a funny series of Brady commercials where there's one with Gronk. They're miscommunicating on the phone because the phone reception's not right. It gets Gronk out of retirement because he can't hear Brady. Maybe one of those things happened with Brady and his wife. Mark, Aikman or Young? Off the top of my head, Steve Young. And I really like Troy Aikman, but Steve Young. Elway or Marino? Elway. Favre or Manning? They're all tough. Manning. Favre makes too many mistakes. Yes, love to see Mark at quarterback on the final drive. Laugh my ass off, just like you on the final drive. Yes, all of us would be a joke. Absolutely. Henny me, please. Can you imagine you on the final drive and then me on the other side on the final drive? It would be a complete joke. Absolutely. David has had some goat for dinner in Africa. Not bad. Some chewy, some tender. Exactly, Lewis. The goat used to be a bad thing. Henny me, please, does not believe in goats. It's part of the evaluation to real MVP. If we're going to make a fair evaluation, then we've got to evaluate the mistakes. Yes. Justin, I'm not a Tom Brady hater by any stretch. There are very few people. So for those of you that have been following me for quite some time, realize my emotional attachment. I love watching football, the NFL and college football. Always have. I think that's come down somewhat. If you took the 25-year-old Mark and the 50-year-old Mark, yeah, not as much as when I was 25, but I still love watching football. My emotional attachment, like somebody asked me my favorite play, like sometimes you guys will ask me my favorite player, and I'm like, I don't have one. I'm not emotionally attached. The emotional attachment is pretty much gone. I want to see Ohio State win, but I'm not like devastated when they don't. When I was 20, I was devastated. Now, there's other more important things in life. So my emotional attachment, like Brady, being a Brady hater, that doesn't exist. Like Tom Brady is who he is. He's arguably the greatest quarterback of all time and the greatest NFL player of all time and all that. But he doesn't take up, and a lot of you are a lot younger than me. So when I was your age, I was at your point in terms of being emotionally attached. But like Tom Brady doesn't take up enough space in my brain other than what I need to talk about on here. As soon as we end this conversation and I end this live stream, my thoughts about Tom Brady are done. Like I'm not thinking about Tom Brady. He doesn't take up any mental space in my mind. Not because he's, that's not a knock on him. He's amazing. He's, again, arguably the greatest of all time and all that. This is not a commentary on Tom Brady. It's a commentary on me and in my life. I don't have enough attachment to be a hater of anyone. I did at other points in my life. Was I a John Riggins hater? Yeah. Joe Theismann hater, a Bo Schembechler hater? Yes, absolutely. Yes. At this point in my life, no. It's just John Doe likes the Michigan helmet. Cagenomics, yes, that could be the point right there that Tom Brady wants to be the guy to report it. Justin, how many rings you got, Mark? I'm not a big rings guy. Not a big rings guy. Justin's taking a lot of offense to the commentary here today. I feel bad for Justin. I truly do. I don't want anybody to be overly offended here, but if you are, then I can't help that. We're just having a conversation. So Justin is obviously offended. James, great to see you. Yes, we wanted to prominently honor Tom the best way I possibly can here, and that's with the helmets. So we gave Michigan the prominent place right there. So look at that. Certainly not a hater. Enemy, please. Thank you so much for that. That's very nice of you. Malia, good to see you. James, it's been a long time. Justin, this is the other thing that's rather funny when somebody's critical of me. They make a comment about how I don't bring up their comments. That's obviously not the case. I had a few of those comments made to me this week that was funny in the comments section of the videos because a couple people were upset about something and trying to tear me down and making comments that I don't respond, or well, I don't respond to hardly any comments. I don't have time, and I appreciate the comments. I look at the comments. I only respond to a few here and there because I would not be able to supply the content that I do without the comments, or with I would not be able to supply the content if I responded to the comments on a consistent basis. But I greatly appreciate them, whether they're even the critical ones. I love it. That's why I'm here. So this is hilarious from Justin because it reminds me of a few comments that were made this week where it's funny because people that are like these nameless, faceless people behind their laptop and on their phone, I'm here taking calls like all week. So it's kind of funny. James, I'm sorry about your dog. That's sad. Been through that before. Enemy, please. Still rocks with Mark. Jim Harbaugh is interviewing with the Vikings. All right. Anything else? Have I caught up? Have I caught up? Okay, I'm going to go to the bottom of the chat because I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. Syracuse Buffalo Sports, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the contribution. Appreciate that. He's Jason. He just won't die. I am hatting. I'm not a big hat guy, Justin. Not a big hat guy. LW, Joe Montana probably better. LW is about the fifth person who signs with Montana when they could body slam you and check the wide receiver, but 10 Super Bowls is nuts. James says that John Elway was grossly overrated. His numbers didn't become great until they acquired Terrell Davis. Go look up his quarterback rating prior to Davis arriving. Yes. And that tells part of the story. Yes, John Elway's stats are pretty underwhelming. P. Dot, sorry, I don't know what you're referring to. It's been a while since whatever comment I made for you to come back with that. James says Elway was winless in Super Bowls prior to Davis arriving. Yes, he had to have some support at running back. Imagine he had Sammy Winder at running back, so he needed some help. P. Dot believes that Brady in any time period does what he does, period. Well, we'll never know. I can't agree with that, and I can't argue with that. Satan's Load says Brady is the greatest. Don't disrespect that man. LT played against janitors. Athletes are much more advanced and now speed and body wise. Seriously? LT? You're not even going that far back. I understand how young some of you guys are when I read some of these comments. K. Boomerang. If Marino played with the rules of today, he playing again today. Salty Cuban, we covered that point about championships and eras. James Warner with a comment about Bradshaw. We talked about Bradshaw earlier. So for many of you, we talked Unitas, Montana, Staubach, Bradshaw, Marino, Manning, Favre, all these guys. So as soon as we get done with the conversation here, understand you can go back and take in the rest of the conversation. Ballard, what a legend. Proud to be a Buck always. He gave us the second title outside of the 2001-2002 Brad Johnson game. Yes. Aesthetics Hard Style. I am old enough to have seen Montana, Brady, Tyson, Jordan. The internet came into being. Cell phones. Larry Bird and I consider it a gift. Brady, best quarterback ever. This is incredible. LW, just another one right there. The 2008 season, I believe it was, when Matt Castle had to play. One season-ending injury in 22 years. Enemy, please. Smart quarterbacks don't take hits. Well, I think that, yes, it used to be said that Tony Dorsett never took a full-on hit because of his awareness and vision, but you can't foresee everything. So, yes, smart quarterbacks take less hits, not they can't completely avoid hits. Yes. Never mind me says he might be taking a year off. That's a good point. Never mind me. That's a valid option for him. That's an interesting point there. Salty Cuban. Joe Montana had a totally different career because of the era he played, was extremely physical. Quarterbacks were fair game and were tossed around regularly like rag dolls, also rules pertaining to receivers. What's funny is for many of you, and I don't know your age, is that you consider the Montana era to be a time that was more physical, yes, and where the receivers didn't have as much freedom, yes, but to compare that pre-1978, that is really the era that changed the game was the 1978 rules. So Montana started in 79. He had the benefit of playing under the modern rules of offensive line blocking and more so pass receivers only being chucked within the 5-yard zone of the line of scrimmage. Montana benefited from. When you're really talking about quarterbacks that played under rules that made it extremely difficult to throw the ball, you're talking Unitas, Gabriel, Jurgensen, Baugh, Staubach, Bradshaw, Namath, Starr, those guys, Stabler. greasy. Chaka James, Nick Saban can't develop players. Asked Jamarcus Russell. So Jamarcus Russell's last season in college was 06, correct? Or 05? Anyway, there was certainly a Les Miles overlap there. I think Nick Saban has proven to be able to develop players. I think there's been a few hundred of those. Aesthetics Hard Style wants an Ohio State helmet. This is Tom Brady. We are celebrating, right, Justin? We are celebrating Tom Brady. I'm a Tom Brady supporter, Tom Brady lover. Just ask Justin. That's why we are featuring the Michigan helmet. That's the best I can do for Tom Brady on short notice or on any notice. What time is it? I am at 5:05 in the chat. I'm catching up, I think. All right, James. Come on, Mark Rogers. Steve Young is another guy, grossly overrated dude. Only actually played about 5 good years with that one Super Bowl on that stacked team with Deion Sanders. Okay. Eric, Mark, could you step in and complete a screen pass in the NFL if your life depended on it? Heck no. You and me, no way. Neither one of us. Chaka, Jimmy Johnson, the greatest coach in college football history, proved his worth by becoming the greatest NFL coach by turning. No. Jimmy Johnson is not the greatest NFL coach. Come on, Chaka. By turning a 1-15 team into a 3-time Super Bowl team, which Barry Switzer destroyed. Okay. Mark is a football droid, whatever that means. Cagenomics, wish Mark would at least address my question about Harbaugh. Asked twice now. I'm out. Have a good day. Didn't see your question about Harbaugh. Send a super chat, and I will get your question for sure. Willie, in Super Bowl, Montana hit Lewis Billups in the chest in the end zone. He dropped it. Next play, touchdown. Yes, luck plays a big factor. I went through the litany of luck that Tom Brady's benefited from. There's one with Joe Montana. I've cited that many times. The play or two before the touchdown pass to John Taylor that beat the Bengals in the Super Bowl, Lewis Billups dropped an interception. So Montana should have been picked off. The game should have been over. The Bengals would have won 13-6. Was that the score? Whatever it was. They lost 20-6, 16-13. So we've got so the other thing about the Patriots during the Brady era is that they played in the worst division in the NFL. So this benefited the Patriots immeasurably. So think about it. Take any division in the NFL during the time in which Tom Brady played for the Patriots. Take any division in the NFL and think about how good these divisions were at various times. You know, the AFC North had the Steelers when they were the Steelers, and the Ravens when they were extremely good. The South had the Titans when they were extremely good. Even the Jags were really good in 05, 6, 7, in that range. You could go on and on throughout the divisions. The Packers, of course, with Rodgers and Favre before that. The NFC East at one time with the Giants and the Eagles. And go through all the divisions. Go through all the divisions in the NFL over the past 22 years, and they've all been really good, stacked with tremendous teams that competed for championships most of the time, except for one. The AFC East has been awful that entire time. The only decent team during that entire Brady run with the Patriots in the AFC East were those Rex Ryan Jet teams in 08 and 09 that went to the AFC Championship game. Other than that, they had the benefit of playing bad divisions and getting first round buys. Okay. I don't think there's anything else here to attack. I appreciate everybody being here. The real MVP. What would happen if Brady's announcement turned out to be fake? Would there be any repercussion for the people who broke the news? Not formally, no. Maybe some kind of hit on their reputation. Teddy says Brady has not retired, even though ESPN and NFL Network are reporting it. All right. I appreciate everybody's comments. I don't think I've missed anything. I'm trying to get through here. James with a comment about my man, Tony Dorsett. I love some Tony Dorsett. Eric, appreciate you being here. Salty Cuban, my point, Mark. Montana benefited, and so did many during the 80s and even 90s. But if you watched games in those decades, you know it's a bigger change in today's rules. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone else? Thank you, Eric. I appreciate your loyalty, sir. Oh, I mentioned this the last couple live streams. There we go. Red Wine 65 says Muhammad Ali is the best of all time. Is he? It's arguable. He's not definitely the greatest of all time. One Scoop John believes that Brady's the greatest of all time. Is he? Well, it can't be proven, but he certainly got the most credentials. Absolutely, he does. Hey, Justin. Thank you, Justin. That's very nice of you. That is a class act right there. Justin, I hope you're still with us. That came down at 5:26. That was 2 minutes ago. Justin, I hope you're still with us. This is what I love to see. Justin dished it out. I dished it back, and Justin comes in with "Love you, Mark." That's a class move right there. That shows some serious integrity. Aesthetics Art Style, thank you so much for that. We appreciate it so much. What I would like, please listen. I'm trying to get a gauge on what fan bases are represented the most here at the Voice of College Football. I have an idea, but we got 33,000 subscribers. Obviously, most of them are not active. They're not watching. I don't get 33,000 views on my videos. And there's also people that are not subscribed that do watch the videos. My point is, I want to get a good gauge on, I would love to get everybody to respond. That's going to be nearly impossible. But if you would hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail, let me put the banner up there, MarkRogersTV at Gmail, and just tell me, excuse me, and Eric, I'm sorry, thank you so much for the super chat. If you would just hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail and tell me who you root for in college football. Tell me who you root for. And you could go on and on about yourself and there have been people that have written me and told me their life stories. I'm exaggerating, but they have told me, and I've responded, and I enjoy hearing from all of you. So please hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail and just tell me, most important, who you root for. I want to count as accurately as possible what fan bases, what teams are represented the most. I want as accurate a count. Okay, we got 2,409 Ohio State fans, and we got 2,317 Michigan fans, and we've got, I would love to be able to have a count. So hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Would also like to know how long you've been watching. And if you have any suggestions or requests, I'll take those. But most importantly, hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail and tell me who you root for. I would love to know. Don't tell me here. I'm not going to be able to see it and track all of this. But send me an email, MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Tell me who you root for. That would be awesome. Jeremiah, they just reported Tom Brady might not retire after all. That's yeah, they're still saying it on the NFL Network. That would be funny. As I stated a few minutes ago, I have no rooting interest for Tom Brady or against Tom Brady, but I was interested in seeing how long can this man possibly play. I was interested to see that. Could we see, people couldn't believe that if you were said 5 or 6 years ago that Tom Brady was going to be 45 years old and playing as well as anybody in the NFL, people would have thought you were crazy. But here he is. Could he be playing at 50? Sure, I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't put it past him. Mike says Sugar Ray Robinson is the GOAT, and many of you are going to have to look him up. Satan's Load says, I guess that's Floyd Patterson is better than Muhammad Ali. Jeff says Godzilla's the greatest. Henny me, please. Thank you so much for the compliment. I appreciate that. Those comments keep me going. Jeff, listen, Mark, I thought Brady would get out at 50, but I guess it's now. 3 more rings would have been 10, 1 for each finger. Good show, Mark. Yeah, that would have been crazy, huh? It is already crazy. Mike says Muhammad Ali is famous for the politics, but pure X's and O's boxing, he's probably 4 or 5. Floyd, Sugar Ray Robinson, better than Ali. And a lot of boxing people say that. A lot of boxing people, and I am not one of them. I watched boxing when I was little. I was like really into it. And I caught Ali right at the end, like the washed up Ali, even though I did see him win the title back from Leon Spinks. I didn't know what I was watching, but I was into it, and I really started to read about boxing, but I have been completely detached from it forever. But hardcore boxing analysts, to Mike's point, many of them rank Ali down the list. It's more about he's popular, he's charismatic, there was the political stand, all of that. He's famous. Being famous and being great at what you do are 2 different things. We have all sorts of examples of that in entertainment. But also that Ali, when he came back from the draft protest, when he was banned for, I believe, 2 years, suspended for 2 years, that he was never the same. That even though he won the title in most of his most famous fights, aside from the 2 Liston fights in 64 and 65 against Norton and Frazier and Shaver, who else? Foreman, the 2 Foreman fights, the 3 Frazier fights, all the big fights that he had in the 70s, that that he was never the same. That he never regained those amazing skills and speed. One Scoop John says TB12 for Michigan analyst role could be mostly Zoom. Nice. Oh, man, my guy. Black Elvis is here. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Hope you're still. This is 5 minutes ago. Good to see you, man. Doing great work over there. You know, I catch all your videos. I love them. Anything else? Create a community poll and ask people what team you're a fan of. That would just give me vote totals, percentages. I don't want that because then I don't know who's responded and I'm only going to get a couple hundred. So that doesn't get it. Black Elvis says, I'm going to send you an email about some absolute BS, then tell you about Saban. I know you know Saban. No, we need to talk about the king. K-Dog, the voice of college football, you can do a Google form and probably get a good count. Google form, I'll have to look into that. I have no idea what that is. Google form. Okay. Anything else? I'm never going to be able to catch up with all of you. So I think we're going to step down here in a second. Salty Cuban, thank you very much, Mark, for taking your time to read most comments. It's unique and refreshing. Also, congrats on the channel's growth between Hurricanes and 49ers fan. Oh, here's another ask. Traveling Fools, good to see you. Here's another ask. Would be Black Elvis right here. You want to check out some all I can say is hilarious because he gets me laughing every time. But I love hearing from Black Elvis. Check out his YouTube channel. Where was I? Salty Cuban said, okay, so I read that, but it reminded me that we would love to get the Notre Dame channel past 1,000 subs. So the 1,000 sub mark is huge on YouTube. It is huge. So if you can get us to 1,000 on the Notre Dame channel, we would appreciate it. And even if you don't like Notre Dame, subscribe, and then you can unsubscribe when we get past 1,000. Get us safely past 1,000 and unsubscribe if you really want to. But the Notre Dame channel, we would like to get to 1,000 soon. Would be phenomenal. Okay. Oh, man, we got some boxing talk in here that I'm not going to go through with Hagler and Aguayo. Tony, appreciate you being here, man. Thank you so much for that. Tony Montana, thank you so much for the contribution. You're phenomenal. Tony says Tampa Bay plays again for New England, San Francisco, or Tennessee. Oh, TB. Yes, it would be Tom Brady Day. Tom Brady plays again for New England, San Francisco, or Tennessee. So are you guys thinking he's taking a year off? And maybe that might be the confusion here, that he might be. I heard him say the other day, hey, my kids, my wife, they're going to play a huge factor in this. I'm missing so much. I don't know how old his kids are. They're pretty small. He would have to sit out a long time to get them to like through high school. So that's not going to happen. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you about these conflicting reports. It may have gotten leaked and he's going to retire, but they're retracting now because he wants to be the guy to settle the score, and he should be. He should be the controller of the information. It should be all about him. They should not be leaked out. Mike, yes, the Notre Dame channel is in black and white. I look so much younger on it. So much better. Absolutely. Andy, thank you so much. Giselle runs the show. I have a comeback there, but it would be a little mean. You know, we don't run a mean-spirited channel here. I take a few shots at some people when I really have to. Okay, the Notre Dame channel link. Let's get that pulled up here in just a second. Okay. Here we go. There we go. So I just dropped a link to the Notre Dame channel in the chat. So thank you so much for that. Whomever reminded me there. Andy, yes, Giselle runs the show. It's Giselle. I could not think of her name before. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. I know it's not making you feel good. You feel gross. You feel violated subscribing to the Notre Dame channel, but we'll get it to 1,000 soon. And Eric, you can unsubscribe and you'll have my undying gratitude until then. Okay. I hate that I'm missing some comments, but we'll never get to the end of the line. Christ Savior 888, thank you so much. Mark, as Michigan quarterback, who should be remembered better, Greasy or Brady? Oh, man. So understand that Tom Brady being arguably the GOAT in pro football, that provides. I need some more light over here. You got to understand that even though most of his accomplishments and his greatness was in the NFL, in pro football, not college, that his greatness, Tom Brady, has reflected well on Michigan. That has helped Michigan considerably. It's maybe not noticeable because they haven't been very good for most of the 20 plus years he's been gone, but good, like great good. But he brings a lot of attention to Michigan. People know, not even college football people, that Tom Brady played at Michigan and he says great things about Michigan. He's very loyal to Michigan. He goes back to Michigan. He's not one of these NFL players that you see on Monday Night Football who don't name the college they played for, which is really annoying to me. They mention, you know, I played at Hillcrest High School. Yeah, whatever. So anyway, Tom Brady, he is very devoted to Michigan. He's very aligned with Michigan and promotes Michigan and Michigan football a lot. So his greatness in the NFL has been good for Michigan. So that transcends what Greasy did as a player. Of course, Greasy won a national championship. Statistically, they're similar. I bet if I pulled up the Michigan stats for Greasy, which would have been mostly 95, 96, 97, and for Brady, 98, 99, they're similar effectiveness. Yeah, great question. All right, folks. No wake helmet. Mike, you could send me one. If anyone wants to send me a helmet, we can get this out there as well. Our P.O. box of sorts is 15 South Main Street, number 1007, Torrington, Connecticut 06790. 15 South Main Street. If you want to send me a helmet, there is the address right there. Mike. Michael says, great career, but should be in perspective. Interesting. Don't know what you mean there. Thank you, Exploring with Ben. So, here at the Voice of College Football. I'm in the process of winding down our series ranking the conferences. I just released the conference ranking on the American Conference. I've got to do the Big Ten, and then we're done. But the final video, I will go through all the math, make sure all the math's right, and present it in such a way that we can compare these conferences. I'm also thinking about doing a series that is in line with what I've done other off seasons, where I've just taken the Power 5 results and I've ranked the conferences based on the results against each other. There's not a lot of people that are into these videos, so that what makes it hesitant, because it takes a lot of time to do those videos, and it's only for certain people. What I've got right here, my top 12 in the Heisman. That's a video that's going to be released here. I've got my top 12, and I've got like another 40 dark horse candidates for the Heisman. So 2 Heisman videos are coming. My prime 12, my prime candidates for the Heisman, my top 12, and then my dark horse candidates for the Heisman. After spring practice in college football, we're going to rank all the positions in college football. We're going to rank them all. Top 10 quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, etc., on down the line. And hopefully I will get to the top 5 at each position in each conference, or maybe the top 10 in each conference. We're going to rank and rate the coaches as well in college football and all sorts of stuff. I'm going to give you my top 10 non-conference games for 2022 and our off-the-radar best games of 2022. Black Elvis almost won the Heisman. One Scoop John, yes, J.J. McCarthy's on my list of dark horses. All right, everyone. Great to see you. Great conversation. Great debate, all of you. This was an amazing live stream. Just did it off the cuff. Saw the news on Tom Brady. Jumped on here. Thank you so much for the response. It was great to talk to all of you here about Tom Brady and the argument about the GOAT in pro football and everything else that we talked about right here at the Voice of College Football. Be locked in, because I'm going to be locked in with more content coming your way. The Big Ten Conference rating is coming, Heisman candidates as well, and so much more right here at the Voice of College Football. Most likely our next get-together will be on Monday. So please like the video and subscribe. Hit the bell for the notifications to know when we go live. That way you don't miss a live stream. Eric, Michael, Alan, Ben, Manny, One Scoop John, Red Wine. I can't get to all of you. Cajunomics, John, great to see all of you. We will see you next time.